semdol kake mofaseda.
Welcome to Talking in Stations, recorded live while we stream. I'm your host, Matterall. A few years ago, CCP was full on into virtual reality. But on Monday, October 30th, an Icelandic publication put out an article with an interview with CEO Hilmar, announcing that a change in direction, as well as layoffs of roughly 100 CPers, was on the way. Further development of VR was shelved, and the company will focus on PC and mobile games. EVE Online's development is unchanged, and all their VR products will continue to be supported. One team that was hit very hard with these layoffs was the community team, the same people that helped this show exist. So today we have the leader of the community team, CCP Falcon, and we'd like to learn more about what happened with CCP and what's going to happen in the future. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But first, if you'd like to support the show, visit Patreon/Matterall and pledge, and that keeps the sponsored commercials away. And those of you that are already helping us out, thank you very much. So today, joining me on the panel, we have some regulars, and I'll just list them out here. Welcome, Dirk McGurk.
Hey, what's going on? Good morning.
Hi, Apotny.
Hey.
And we have a guest, Noisy Gamer.
Hello, everybody.
Actually, no longer a guest, been promoted to part of the panel that you'll see often. And Seamus Donahue from EVE University.
Hello.
And our special guest today is CCP Falcon.
Hey, guys.
All right. Welcome to the show. First of all, let's start out with just people who are under rocks. Can you tell us like what you do and what your role is at CCP?
Sure, yeah. So I'm the EVE University Community Manager. I basically I lead the group of guys and girls who takes care of community management for CCP. So I work, I have in the past worked cross-product, but right now I'm really focused on EVE Online. And basically we take care of everything like community messaging, fan site support, pretty much everything that involves the community from the ground up.
Oh, great. So, okay. So obviously you're, a lot of your colleagues are going to be leaving, and I know it's a very, stressful time and all that. So we apologize if we ask anything insensitive. But we do want to try to ask as many questions as we can, because there's generally a lot of interest to find out, how you guys are doing and what's going to happen and stuff like that. But let's start out with October 30th. When did you guys hear about the changes? Because the reason I ask this is because it was kind of a surprise to everybody that plays the game. Of course, I'm sure it was a surprise to you guys, but it came out in a publication in Icelandic and had to be translated for people to even know this was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was obviously the nature of redundancies is just that. They're generally pretty swift, and they generally, for some people, can seem to come out of the blue. And for the vast majority of CCP, obviously, with our Shanghai studio being affected as well, a lot of the guys over in Shanghai found out a little bit earlier because obviously they're like 9 hours ahead of us. And then as things rolled on, sort of throughout the course of Monday, obviously the Newcastle office, the London office, the Icelandic office are all roughly on the same time zone. So we found out then. And then, of course, a couple of hours later, the Atlanta office found out too. So, yeah, it was just kind of, it rolled out sort of through the day. But the company was kind of super sensitive about the fact that they wanted to speak to people first. So nothing went out into the Icelandic media, and nothing went out publicly, obviously, until everyone who was affected had been spoken to and been kind of briefed on what was happening.
Oh, so that publication then came out later in the day. I didn't realize at what point it came out.
Yeah, it was like, I think it was about 3:15 UTC, which was sort of after everything had already happened, and and the community team, and the rest of CCP had all kind of already had at least a couple of hours to absorb what was happening.
Yeah. Now, we know you're speaking, every time that you speak, you're under scrutiny because you represent the company and stuff like that. But could you tell us what your initial reaction was?
I mean, obviously, surprise.
Like, what?
I mean, that kind of happens. But I think anything like this that happens, regardless of what company you're at, it's the reaction is always surprise. I mean, I've been through redundancies at companies in the UK in the past, and it's just one of those things. You have to you kind of have to sort of roll with the punches. And yeah, I mean, there was a lot of surprise. Obviously, some people who were angry, some people who were frustrated. But I've kind of never been one to let stuff like this get under my skin. I just sort of look at a situation and say, okay, I'm still alive and kicking. I'm still here. I'm still kind of wearing the hoodie. What do we do to move forward? There's it's super sad to see so many friends and colleagues get let go, but at the same time, you've just got to try and focus on doing what you can.
Yeah, which was but you had some extra responsibility because you were actually going to go to Eve Amsterdam and be a part of all that, but you said there's too much going on here. At least I think that's what was publicly said. Or why don't you tell us why didn't you go to Eve Amsterdam?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of obviously kind of, it did come as a surprise, and then it was just the point where, yeah, there's a lot of people at CCP who are hurting, obviously. There's a lot to consider, what we're going to be doing going forward, how we're going to be allocating staff to things, that sort of thing. So I just felt like it was better for me to stay behind in Iceland and hold the fort. Obviously, CCP guards over there at Amsterdam. So he's more than capable of handling the guys at Amsterdam. And I just thought, yeah, it'd be better for me to stay in Iceland because we're looking at a lot of projects, what we're going to do going forward, that kind of thing. And I kind of just wanted to be here to hold the fort down as well. So yeah, it's unfortunate I couldn't go over. I was really looking forward to it, but these things happen. There's always next year.
One of the things I'd like to do here is kind of split out some of the portions of this restructuring so that we can eventually get to focusing on what really this show is about, which is kind of EVE Online, right? But can you explain the disposition or the plans for what's going on with the Newcastle studio? There's there's a thing I guess of selling the Newcastle studio. What goes with that? Where does Valkyrie end up, and kind of what will be the VR remnants that remain with CCP?
Yeah, you kind of broke up a little bit, but just questions about the Newcastle office. Really, in all honesty, I can't go into details about what's going on with the Newcastle office. Plans are in process for various things to make sure we continue to support Valkyrie. And that's, out of respect for the guys who are working over there and the processes that they're going through right now, I can't really say much in detail. All I can say is that both Valkyrie and Spark, they're not going away. It's not like we're just going to pull the plug and shut these things down. I mean, they're two fantastic projects, and the teams that were involved with them were, they poured their heart and souls into them for several years. So, I mean, we're definitely in a position where we're looking towards continuing to support them. At least that is the plan. And we're already talking about how we do that going forward. Right
continue
now,
to be supported.
No solid details.
Continue to be supported from within CCP, or from within, or will those products go with the Newcastle studio?
I mean, we still own the IP. Like we still own Valkyrie, obviously, and we'll continue to do so. So yeah, I mean, it's just a case of we'll continue to support them. That's how things will roll.
By the way, just a point of clarity that Coquette came up with there in chat, and that is redundant is how you say layoffs in Iceland, right?
Can you repeat
that? Redundant, what's that mean? That's layoffs, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's kind of the British or European way of saying layoffs. Basically, it's when positions at a company are made redundant, effectively, and people are let go. So layoff and redundancy is kind of just, they're interchangeable words.
Also known as downsizing.
Yeah.
Right sizing.
Yeah. Well,
let's break out all of the drink for it words.
All the business terms.
Out of the 100 number, okay, the people that were affected by this, how many of them are specifically related to Newcastle and VR wherever they were located?
Honestly, I don't have exact numbers. It's not something that I've looked into, but yeah, I mean, the vast majority of the cuts that were made relate to our VR projects in Newcastle and Atlanta.
Yeah. So, do you happen to know the head count for the Newcastle studio, just in general?
Off the top of my head, no. Somewhere around 40, I believe, if I remember correctly. But you can take that with a grain of salt because I'm not exactly sure.
Hmm. Are you finished with the Newcastle questions, Dirk?
Sort of, I guess. I mean, yeah. I mean, it sounds as though Valkyrie and whatnot is going to be staying with EVE Online. Therefore, they are going to be continuing to maintain some developer presence within VR, still in house, regardless of what's actually happening with the Newcastle studio itself. Correct?
What do you mean by developer presence, though?
Well, I mean, if they're going to continue to support those games, then that means that they're going to have somebody that has VR experience. Even and when they say support, I guess here's another question. When they say support, do they mean continue to iterate on those projects, or do they mean basically just making sure that they continue to function?
So, by the way, just a point of programming note here: your audio is apparently not going well for Falcon, so it's hard for him to hear you. But I hear you fine, and I don't know if the audience wants to say, can you guys hear Dirk fine or not? Let us know.
This is Seamus Dunhu. I can hear Dirk McGurk just fine.
Yeah, so can we?
But yeah, in terms of, I kind of caught the question in terms of like developer presence. And yeah, as far as I'm aware, the plan is to obviously retain some staff in house. He'll make sure that Valkyrie continues to function and operate. Same thing with same thing with Spark. There's services that we're going to continue to operate. They're games that we know and love, and that we've spent a lot of time on developing. So they're not going to go away.
Yeah. Okay, so did you want to continue? Sorry, Dirk, did you want to continue?
No, because honestly, I look at this entire thing and sit there and say, I'm sorry to see that, this has happened for Newcastle and whatever that's going on with the VR thing. But that's always been sort of a side thing for CCP, or related to EVE Online is what's really important. And with regard to the Atlanta office, they're closing the Atlanta office. How many employees were in the Atlanta office, and how many of them are being laid off or separated, related to this?
Again, not exactly sure on numbers, but I know that quite a few of the Atlanta staff, being offered to move to other locations and work on other projects. It's the one thing that I will say is that like CCP in general over the course of the last week has taken a shitload of flack over, you're just kicking people out the door and it's so terrible. All of the guys who are affected by this, I've been through the layoffs, redundancies, whatever you want to call them, at other companies in the past, and I've seen it be absolutely fucking heartless, where it's like, get your shit off your desk. Like, you're gone, and you're escorted out the door into the car park with like a fucking cardboard box in your hands. With CCP, entirely different. I mean, there's all kinds of processes in place to help people, to make sure that people, land on their feet. In fact, we're in a position where I can outright say, like, the human resources team at CCP are the best team that I've ever worked with, and I've worked for some pretty big businesses in the past. They're incredibly good. They've been incredibly professional through the whole situation. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of skilled and really, really, knowledgeable staff who are going to be let go from CCP. But in the same respect, I've got no doubt that every single one of them are going to find their feet and land on their feet, no problem at all.
Yeah, and we should say you're kind of a representative for some players, aren't you? Something like that. I'm talking about not players. I meant CCPers.
You're
Is
the
there-
you're the union
yeah.
steward, are you not?
Yeah. I'm the union ombudsman for the Icelandic office. Yeah.
Ombudsman. Okay, that's kind of in between person, so kind of like a rep. Noisy.
Yeah. CCP has a little bit of a different problem than most other companies when they lay people off. People that have been at CCP for 10 years have swords. So what happens to the people with the swords? And like, let's say like for CCP Manifest, who has his sword, do you ship it to his house, or exactly how does that work?
That's the most like
You ship it to his chest.
random and off the wall question, but okay. It's not just the 10-year sword. After 5 years, you get the option to get like a watch or a big CCP branded 66 North jacket. You get a challenge coin after a year, and all that stuff belongs to you. You know, your all that stuff is like the company gives that to you, and it's as a reward for how long you've been with the company. So yeah, that all belongs to him. Don't worry about it. No one's taking Manifest sword away. It's fine.
There was so many ways to play with that one, Noisy, but okay. All right, so that's good, because one of the questions I had is, what is CCP doing to help people readjust? Because these are all people we care about out here in the community of EVE, all the meta players and stuff. But I guess you answered that, unless there's anything else you want to add.
But it should be noted that even though they're closing the Atlanta office, that there are people down there who were offered positions to relocate. Now I know Pellegro was he's team security. He was out of the Atlanta office, and he seems to be staying. From what I heard, Manifest was offered the ability to relocate, but due to real life reasons, could not do that. So that's one of the reasons why Manifest is no longer there.
Yeah. And Manifest, I don't know if you said, is the main PR guy in contact for a lot of us when we want to get somebody on the show, or some of the stuff that you would hear from in meetups like EVE Vegas. He's a key figure because he's the one running all the player presentations and stuff like that. So Seamus, you had a question too, right?
Yes, as in backstage. Am I good to proceed with the question?
Proceed.
You can ask me whatever the hell you like, dude. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a contentious one. So EVE Online is as successful as it is because of the engagement of the player base. And communicating with the player base on an extensive and regular basis is very important to maintaining that engagement. I mean, you don't just want to bring in new players, you also want to keep them. You want to keep the players you already have. Now, I have a tendency to have a pessimistic mindset, just generally speaking. So this gutting of the community team, at least it seems to come across to me, that Crowd Control Productions doesn't actually care about communicating with the player base. I'm probably not the only person who's reading into this that way. Falcon, can you and Guard really take on the entire effort that was formerly done by, I forget how many people were on the community team?
So, I mean, we can talk about kind of size and structure. So the community team forms part of a larger team, which is known as communications within CCP. That team was 12, and it's now 5. So, that's a big drop in numbers. But with the fact that we're not going to be devoting so much time to our VR projects now, so we're not going to be, running around to big major events, that kind of stuff with Valkyrie and Spark. It gives us a lot more downtime and a lot more time that's surplus that we can use on other stuff. And that other stuff, of course, is EVE, because that's now our primary focus. So will I say, yeah, we can handle this, no problem at all? No, I won't say that. It's going to be a challenge. There's going to be probably a lot of long days for us. There's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to have to sort of shift around, add to our skill sets, that kind of thing. We're going to have to mess around a little bit more in terms of learning new things, doing new things, deciding that, for the return on investment, some stuff just might not be something we want to do anymore. We might spark up new different projects. Like, it's a big downturn in numbers of people who are devoted to doing this, but
it's also less on your plate.
Yeah, to an extent, yeah. But I mean, we're also in a position to where, God has been with CCP since time began, basically. I've been with Eve since time began, pretty much. So, we've got the two of us, we've got a decent amount of knowledge between us. I mean, we have like 32, 34 years of Eve knowledge and experience between us in terms of man years. And yeah, I mean, we've also got a really, really good group of 3 other guys who are still working with us, who are more than ready to dive in and help us out too. So yeah, and we've had it's no secret that that our team is one of the most heavily impacted ones in the company, in fact. But it's just that's life, Got to stay positive, got to look forward, got to move on. And we've had so many offers of support and encouragement, and people wanting to pitch in from all over the EVE Online team. So I mean, I'm not worried. Am I a little bit stressed? Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's super sad to see members of the team go, especially members of the team who, been doing an absolutely incredible job. So yeah, I mean, it's super sad, and it's a little bit stressful, but at the same time, you just got to kind of figure out what you can do with the sets of hands you still have and just move forward. So that's yeah, it's just the way that we're looking at it.
Okay, so it'll be difficult, but it'll be doable. Okay. That actually does alleviate some of my concern, at least.
Botany, do you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, this summer, some players were upset in a surprise to everyone. I decided to call it the Summer of Miles Discontent. One of the things that CCP came out to say after, people had grievances airs, obviously CCP had discussed with the CSM, is that members of the community team were being embedded into each of the dev teams. They'd already sometimes been helping or doing the writing of the dev blogs, and there would be a bigger push for teams to be more consistently and more clearly communicating as to what they're working on, especially in the months where people are on holiday and it may appear that less work is being done, and it may appear that CCP are forgetting about EVE Online or whatever. So obviously, with the reduced number of people, I don't know if you have enough people to have a person per team. Is that project of having a community manager or embedded in a team, or whether it's now one community manager embedded in 2 teams or whatever, is that still something moving forward to continue with the great dev blogs that we all love to read?
So the position that we're in beforehand is that with 5 people working on EVE Online specifically, we didn't have enough people to cover all of the teams, and people were going to have to double up. So we're going to have people assigned to more than one team. Now, because of the position that we're in terms of they're effectively going from like 5 community developers to 2 community developers, it doesn't mean that it's going to make practical sense for us to full on be embedded with teams. But what it does mean is that we've just got to grow extra arms and legs and figure out how to do this going forward. We're in a position actually where the part of the communications team that is based in Reykjavik in Iceland, we actually relocated from one side of the building to the other side of the building to actually be a lot closer to the development team. Around summertime was when this happened. And myself and God, we have a really, really great working relationship with the development team. So I'm not really concerned about us being able to get messaging out and being able to get information out that needs to go out. I don't think that's going to be a problem. We, of course, Monday afternoon, after all this happened, after, actually just before the news announcement went out, or right around the time, myself and God immediately sat down with the CSM to speak to them and to talk to them about this. And one of the things that we impressed on the CSM is that, there's less hands on deck now. So we're going to be a lot more involved in being, straight shooting up front and direct with the CSM, and working with them a little bit more, and making sure that they serve kind of a little bit even more as our eyes and ears. So that if there is any trouble, if there is any clarification needed, and we do happen to miss it, then we've also got a team of 10 rock solid EVE players who can also assist us in that respect as well. So yeah, I mean, again, a little bit of stress, yeah, a few concerns, of course, but I think it's something that we can deal with. It's something that we can shape to the people that we have on the team right now and that we can work with.
Now, you said that the community team went from 12 to 5. How many of those 5 would you consider to be dedicated to EVE Online?
Just to correct you there, not the community team, the communications team. The community team went from
Sorry.
5 to 2. The communications
Right. Okay.
team fell to 5. How many of those people dedicated to EVE Online? All of them, basically. There's going to be a little bit of work on the side that's going to go into, obviously, Valkyrie, Spark, or the projects, that kind of stuff. We've also got Project Nova coming up as well. So yeah, I mean, we're all dedicated to EVE IP stuff now, and we've got a great group of 5 people who know what the hell they're doing. So yeah, I think we're not in as good shape as we were a week ago, but we're still in pretty solid shape with a group of really good people who know what they're doing.
Okay, but okay, so it was communications team, but the community team itself now is just you and Guard. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, coming out at Vegas, I had a number of conversations and made a number of comments about the fact that it really seemed like CCP was now getting it as far as community engagement goes, that they recognize the fact that if you really want to hold together what it is that we have, that kind of community engagement is really what needed to happen. And then it's just odd that a month later, basically, or less than a month later, you end up completely eviscerating a lot of that effort. What does that mean going forward in terms of a lot of those big plans for the 2019 fan fests all around the world? I mean, has any of that changed because of this? Is there going to be a change in terms of overall ability to continue to maintain this community engagement?
I mean, we're already looking at various avenues. Not everything has to be done in-house. I mean, for instance, one of the things that we were concerned about was being able to live stream FanFest. And, we just go to a position where we were, 2012, 2013 and beforehand, where we actually just hired in a production company here in Iceland. And they literally brought 2 massive 18-wheel trucks full of video equipment, like mobile studios, parked them outside the back of Harper, and we broadcasted from those trucks. And we had, guys who were just solely dedicated to AV and solely dedicated to live streaming, who were working for us on a contract over FanFest. And if it means that we have to do that for Vegas too, to make sure that we get a live stream out to people, then that's what we'll do. It's how things work.
Yep. Now, one of the other people that was affected by this was CCP Roughage. Now, CCP Roughage is one of the people, I think, along with CCP Curtis, who I think is still with the company. Is yes?
Yep.
Okay. CCP Roughage, along with CCP Curtis, are the people who are responsible for putting on FanFest and Vegas and that sort of thing. How is this going to tax their ability to produce those FanFest-like events?
I mean, obviously, it's gonna mean more work for Curtis. It's gonna mean a lot more work for me too. Some of it, of course, can go to our outsourcing agencies as well in terms of setting up contracts, getting things sorted. And there's also a lot of other people in the company outside of the communications team and the events team who are involved with FanFest. For instance, funnily enough, it's actually one of our web producers who acts as the producer for the keynotes, for instance, at FanFest. So there's a lot of people at CCP who wear a lot of hats. There's a lot of unsung heroes outside of our team who actually put in a lot of contribution towards stuff that happens behind the scenes of FanFest. I mean, you look at CCP Mimic and how forward facing and how involved she is with EVE TV. CCP Mimic is actually a development producer. It's not in her job description to be running live streaming stuff for EVE TV, but she pitches in because she loves the community. And we've got a really, really solid core group of staff on the EVE development team who absolutely love our players and love the game. And I'm 100% confident that everyone's going to pitch in and everyone's going to be put us in a good position.
And Mimic has natural talent to be on TV, which doesn't hurt.
Indeed.
True that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get a little more personal, if you don't mind. You actually have a real relationship with one of the people that was laid off, CCP Lilu. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And so this is kind of hits home literally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we were super surprised. And I think there's obviously the stages of grief that you go through. I mean, I was pretty upset. Obviously, Natalia Lilu was upset as well. But you just kind of have to deal with it. I know that sounds rough to say that, but
Mhm.
at the end of the day, as much as we both absolutely love Eve, we love CCP. CCP is very much like family. It's unlike any other company that I've worked for before. And one of the things that was absolutely incredible to see was as soon as the news broke, we had I actually killed my browser at home because we had so many people from CCP just pinging us on Facebook like, hey, I know this guy here who's got this job opening. I know this guy here who's got this job opening. I know an immigration lawyer who can help you guys out. I know this, that, the other. And there was we've had hundreds of offers from staff at CCP who are just like, yeah, I can talk to these guys for you. I can talk to these guys for you. I can help you out with this, that, the other. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of the thing that's actually hurt me the most about all of this is seeing CCP itself take the hammer for this because, yeah, you can argue bad decision making. Some people can argue bad management, whatever they want. But in the end, the company itself is a family. It's a group of people it's a group of like-minded individuals who care for each other, who work together, and who have, an incredibly family-oriented mentality. And even when you do leave CCP, even when you say your goodbyes, you get on a plane or a boat and you go elsewhere, you're always part of that family. That's just the way that it is. So yeah, I mean, it's upsetting. It's a little bit sad, but in the same respect, you're gone, but you're never out, kind of thing. You're always a member of this kind of almost like a brotherhood, I would say.
Like a vampire family.
Yeah, and there's people who've been, they've been with CCP for like 10 years, and some guys who left 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, who who were still part of our Facebook groups, who were still with us, who were still chatting with us, and there's guys who left CCP in 2007, 2008, who heard about what happened on Monday, and suddenly they're posting in this Facebook group, and they're like, hey guys, if anyone needs any help, I've got this, I've got that, I've got the other, I can put you in contact with this guy, this guy, this guy. So these are guys that just come out of the woodwork after a number of years because they know people and they love people at CCP and they love the company. And there's an incredible support network there for all the guys and girls who unfortunately have been let go. And it's the same for the guys who are on my team. I'll always do my best to make sure that they land on their feet. And if they ever need recommendations, if they need, advice, if they need assistance in any way, shape, or form, then we're always there for them.
Yeah.
And we can help out as much as possible.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to look at it and say, oh, this is money grab and cold, cost cutting and stuff like that. But I think it's a lot more personal when you're inside the situation than it is from the outside. We can say anything we want. We don't actually know what's going on in there.
Yeah, and I will say, one of the things that's frustrated me the most over the course of the last week is a lot of the bullshit assumptions that I've seen, and a lot of the blatant misinformation. It's been it's the one thing that grinds my fucking gears the most when you sat back and you're dealing with all the shit that's going on with work. You're dealing with obviously I've got the home stuff to deal with as well, and then I go to REve and it's just a total cesspit, and you're just I've just gone there and I'm like, you know what, I'm not even gonna read this shit. I'm just gonna go elsewhere, and I'm just gonna deal with I'm gonna deal with Twitter, I'm gonna deal with Facebook, and I'm just gonna let Reddit get on with it for today because I'm really not bothered. And yeah, there's a lot, and the misinformation comes from all kinds of sources. But it's sad to see it, and it's sad to see people take the gloves off. But it's also ironic because you hear this all the time. Every couple of months there's a thread on REve that's fire this guy's terrible. Get rid of this guy. This is terrible. And then when shit like this happens, you see a lot of, you see exactly the opposite. Oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. And it's okay, guys, which one do you want? Do you want one or the other?
Yeah.
That's life. The internet is what it is. And you gotta when you're in kind of the role that I do and the role that my team do, you just got to kind of take it with a grain of salt. So I just generally kind of just go, okay, guys, whatever, get on with it. And then you just sort the facts from the fiction as and when you need them,
Right.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
Reddit is what Reddit is, to some extent. But I mean, look, there has been speculation out there as to what what brought this on, right? There's been speculation for a while regarding the equity ownership in the company and whether or not some of these funds are going to want to see a different return on their money. Is this an element of that? Is this something where it's like in trying to sell off the Newcastle studio, it's because the 30 million that came in dedicated to VR back in 2015, is not seeing the type of return that it expected?
I mean, obviously, one of the things I'm just like not going to talk about is the business side of things, because it's not my place, and it's not something that I want to get into the nitty gritty of. And obviously I'm also under NDA too. Hey, it's life.
Yeah, no. And it really wasn't so much a question to you as I understand the speculation that's out there, because this has been speculation that has gone on for a long time as players have seen the financials and they've seen the equity ownership in the company move from being what was more tightly held to being venture capital and private equity funds and things like that. So there was always kind of this concern of one day somebody's going to want an exit strategy, and what is that going to mean? But I do want to throw you a question related to a comment that you made. I think it was on the forums, or maybe it was part of some of the things that there's going to be more focus on EVE now. Well, what exactly does that mean? Are there going to be more resources dedicated to development? We've obviously cut out the community side of it, to some extent. But what does it mean for the actual game EVE Online?
What does it mean? It means that the company is way more focused on EVE itself. It means that the spotlight is on EVE, and it means that we're going to be looking at what we can do to grow EVE, and what we can do to further solidify the core of the game and develop it further in the coming years. I mean, there's some people who've been offered positions to relocate, have been offered positions on Project Nova. There's some people who've been offered positions on EVE Online as well. So if anything, it just means that the company is in a stronger position to devote resources to EVE and to make sure that we focus on it going forward. Everyone who comes to CCP knows what we do. Everyone who comes to work for us knows that, EVE is and always has been for the last 16 years now, like the core business. It's the core thing that drives our revenue, and it's the biggest project that we have, and it's supported by our biggest studio. So yeah, I mean, to kind of assuage any concerns, like EVE is here, it's a thing, and the staff, everyone from the guys and like myself who are on the ground, who are forward facing with you guys, to like people who are on our HR team and people who are on our finance team and that kind of stuff. We've got EVE players all over the company. We've got people who love the game all over the company, and people who, yeah, they might not actually work on EVE. They might be in administration positions, but they're in a position where they'll dive in and they'll help with FanFest or they'll help with events. So, I mean, CCP in general, despite the fact that obviously, we've restructured and we've let 100 people go, has solid financial foundation, is in a good position to start pushing with EVE going forward. So that's what we're going to do. The communication side thing will be a little bit difficult for a while. We're going to have to learn new things and find out different ways of doing things, but we're good, and we just continue to push forward.
And there's a lot of people, as you heard, there's nearly 100 people. Not all of them are public facing. So when we ask the next question I'm going to ask, it's because these are the people that we know or hear about or see and stuff. But there's definitely a lot of people that we don't know that have been laid off too. And we can't ask about everybody. But I did want to bring up another person. We brought up Lilu, who you have a personal relationship with. And the other one is Logibro, that you've worked with, or does tournament work, and also did CSM work and stuff like that. So that's someone we've been hearing a lot about. Can you tell us, what are some of the things that he used to do that you'll have to fill in for?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Logic Bro was like a human octopus. He wore many hats, and we all do. Everyone who's been a part of the community team will attest to the fact that you wear a lot of hats when you work at CCP. And yeah, I mean, like, there's been questions, for instance, about the Alliance tournament. We've got a great partnership going with Plus 10 Gaming, the guys who used to be known as EVNT. They've done an amazing job last year broadcasting, and it just means that we'll go ahead with a plan for what we're going to do for Alliance Tournament 16 next year, and we'll let those guys handle the broadcasting completely, and we'll deal with the back end of the running of the tournament and the refereeing. So there's all kinds of things that we can do to make sure that we're in a solid position to keep following on with the projects that we had. I mean, I won't lie, losing Lilu, losing Logibro, losing Phantom, it's a big kick in the nuts for us. They're wonderful people who are doing an amazing job, and none of the layoffs that have happened have been down to performance on an individual level. It's just been changing needs for CCP as a company. And yeah, it's a super sad thing to have happen. But we've just got to figure out what we do going forward. And over the course of the next couple of weeks, the rest of the communications team are going to regroup. We'll figure out what to prioritize, what we're going to go ahead with, and we'll go from there. Yeah, I mean, Logibro as a perfect example of like a shining beacon of what it should be to be a guy who works on the community team. He originally came in as a community rep for Dust 514 back in the day, transitioned over to Eve. Because he's a pretty hardcore Eve player when he came to CCP, and he's just gone from strength to strength over the course of the last kind of 5 years. So yeah, I mean it's
Well, these guys will land on their feet. We just are going to miss them. And Stuff Manifest is another one. But more about the Alliance tournament. Apothecary, do you have anything that you wanted to ask?
Yeah. So you mentioned something interesting there that I haven't heard, but you mentioned that, I don't know if you confirmed it or you said it's one of the possibilities, that the entire broadcast would be going over to Plus 10. Is that like a confirmed plan, or are you just throwing out ideas of what you can do to kind
I mean, that's I'll be honest, and I've been honest with this when people have asked me about it at events. It's something that I'd love to do. I think, and it was something that I would have loved to do even before we were in a position where we've lost a few members of the team. It's something we were very much thinking about doing because of the fantastic job the Plus 10 did with the last Lions tournament. And it makes sense to have the community more involved in this kind of thing, especially the broadcasting side. Obviously, for the integrity of the competition, we need to keep the refereeing and the back end work in house. But I don't see why not. It's a cool thing. It's a fantastic project. Nash and the guys in Nottingham have proved they can do an incredible job. So why not?
Former CSM member Nash Cadaver.
One other thing I definitely wanted to ask about is one of the things that Logibro was in charge of, and now obviously will go to someone else's responsibility, is the running of the Thunderdome server, which is, I don't think it would be an understatement to say, is up there in terms of one of the most useful things, one of the best things ever produced to support Eve tournament play in any capacity, not just the Alliance tournament. We've got EVNT running on it. A system like that is something that has been dreamt about for years and years and years for anyone involved in any kind of tournament or less in the direct sandbox play of Eve. Are there already plans for who's going to look after Thunderdome? Because I know that a lot of people in the tournament community and surrounding social circles are very worried that it might be something that gets shuffled around and forgotten, and then we want to get people added to it so that they can practice for whatever tournament that they can, or then we won't get access to Thunderdome until 2 weeks before the Alliance tournament. Like, having an active and quick response to Thunderdome stuff when people do tournament stuff is probably the kind of the biggest ball ache when it comes to doing tournament things. So I know a lot of people are very worried about still having someone that they can go to, and somebody who'll be actively keeping the member list for Thunderdome updated, making sure the server's running and everything's going okay there.
Yeah, I mean, make no buts about it. I know for a fact how important Thunderdome is, and it's something that Logibro planned and put together. It was like a 2-year-long project for him to get it off the ground. And it's something that's very important to sort of the esports side of EVE Online, and it's something that definitely is top of the list to preserve. Where it'll live, I'm not sure. Who will maintain it? Not sure at this stage, because all the changes that happened only happened like 5 working days ago. So we're still sort of a little bit in limbo until we figure out where things are going to lie. And how things are going to work. But definitely Thunderdome is something that I want to make sure that we keep alive.
Yeah. So what about the upcoming FanFest World Tour kind of thing? Is that something that can be farmed out too? It seems like it already was. Like after talking with Hilmar at eVegas, he seemed to refer to another guy, and I don't know if he was a part of CCP or not, but he was the one that had the details. But is that still going to happen the way it was planned, or is that all up for changing?
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, it's an ambitious plan regardless of how you look at it. But at this stage, yeah, it's still on the cards, and it's still something that we want to do. Same thing with FanFest in Iceland. So yeah, as far as I'm aware at this stage, no changes in that department, so to speak.
Is there any changes coming that you can speak to that are changes in engagement style? Like, will we still have access to CCP devs, or is there a kind of a behavioral change that'll be more traditional gaming community kind of thing where the devs don't really talk to is there anything major changing as far as this show, as far as publications when they write about EVE News and stuff, as far as access to you guys?
Not at all. I mean, I started playing EVE 16 years ago. I started playing in beta, and one of the things that this company has always done, one of the things that CCP always done, is had a direct pipeline for people to chat with our development staff. And I would be worried, and I would be in a position where I'd be worried about the future of EVE if all of a sudden you couldn't talk to our staff. You know what I mean? Like, the foundation of CCP has been for us to be open and direct, and for us to be able to give you guys access to game designers or content designers or programmers for interviews, for information, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it is something if that sort of stuff started to be talked about internally, it was something that I would actively and viciously fight against. Because, stuff like, Crossing Zebras, INN, EVE News 24, all of the news sites, all of the podcast sites, all of the guys who actually put shows like this out, they're the cornerstones of the community. They're the bread and butter of what we do. And it's how information beyond our official dev blogs and our official forum posts, that's how everything propagates. So yeah, I mean, I would be screaming to high heavens if we got into that position, quite frankly. And there's been no even distant indicators of that being a thing. Plus the fact that our dev team love to talk to you guys. So it's sometimes you can put them in an awkward position with weird questions and shit. But
yeah, sorry about that. We'll put Noisy back.
You guys, so, and I would never be in a position where I would advocate for us talking to you guys less.
Yeah, I was just fake apologizing for Noisy Gamer's question about the sword, but I'm going to make it clear that I was just kidding. And for those of you that are asking or suggesting that I was getting too personal with CCP Falcon, all the questions that we are asking were cleared. Not the questions themselves, but just, could we ask anything? And Falcon said, ask me anything. And so...
Well, he doesn't have to. We can ask anything. He doesn't. He doesn't have to answer some of those things, but it doesn't mean we don't answer.
Total disclaimer: I have always, when I was an EVE player and even as a dev, and yeah, it's got me into trouble with EVE players a couple of times. I've always been a straight shooter, and I'll always speak my mind. And I've got no problem, even after everything that's happened over the course of the last week. I have no problem engaging with our community, no problem engaging with our players. If we're in a position where, people don't get the answers they want, then it's it's unfortunate, but there's just some things that we can't talk about. And yeah, I've been accused of all kinds of things. I've been accused of being insensitive, rough around the edges, that kind of stuff. And some of the stuff that I, for instance, said on Reddit can be a little bit harsh at times. And, I'm known to have caused a few fires over the years. But in the same respect, that is what is that's what it's all about. It's about being direct. It's about being open. It's about trying to make sure that there are no unanswered concerns. So yeah, I'm more than happy to talk to you guys. Everyone at CCP is more than happy to talk to you guys, and I'm happy to have any questions in the world. And I'm straight shooting enough to know for the fact that if I can't answer something, I'll just say can't talk about it, or don't know, or don't have any information on it. You know, that's just how it is. And
Yeah.
you know, you can never talk about things getting too personal in Eve. Like for a lot of people at CCP and for a lot of Eve players, this goes beyond a game. It goes beyond a job. It's a hobby. It's something we enjoy. It's something that we love, and it's something that we do because we care about it. I don't want to be in a position where I've got a 9 to 5 job and I'm bored shitless all day. I want to be in a position where I'm constantly excited to go to work, you know?
Yeah, for a lot of these guys, Eve is it's in the veins. Like this is about what you think about when you're, not inside the game client as well. So that's it's definitely like a hard line to, and this happens all the time with the meta and Eve is, you've overstepped the line or that sort of thing. So there's definitely a connection between the players and devs that has gone back, and you mentioned this, all the way back to the beginning. If you look at the beta players and how they were kind of going back and forth, they were practically devs. The advanced players were practically devs.
Yeah, I can remember, the old days of everyone being sat in IRC channels, shooting the shit with the guys back when CCP was like a 20-man company. And like the entire staff of CCP, including, if I remember, the kitchen staff, we're on IRC shooting the shit with people about spaceships. And that's life. And that's where the company comes from. The company remembers its roots. And community and you guys is always at the forefront of what we're thinking about when we're doing things. And yeah, it's I'm not going to deny kind of the changes that have happened over the course of the last week do send a different message. We've lost a lot of forward-facing people in terms of community team members, but we're in a position where we have a lot of talent and a lot of people at CCP who love Eve, who are very involved with it, and who are more than happy to speak. And who are more than happy to be part of an extended team that assists us with this stuff going forward. So yeah, I mean, it's super upsetting that we've had to say goodbye to so many people, but in the same respect, we'll just keep pushing. Eve is something that we all love, we all believe in, and we've all been dedicated to for many years. So hopefully many more years ahead.
So Deopa and Blastum, I think, both brought up a point that is similar, and that is how can players kind of help out with the community team? Is the volunteer program still going, by the way?
Yeah, the volunteer program is still going. We still have 5 divisions. We do everything from bug hunting to new player support to forum moderation to fiction and backstory authoring. So there's always the volunteer team out there, and I've got no doubt, once we regroup and we square things away when we go into the new year, we'll be looking to to further work on expanding our volunteer team, strengthening the core of them, and making sure that we've got a really, really good solid base going forward. I mean, I've had so many questions myself, about next year, and what we're going to do, and it's just right now we're focusing on making sure we've got the basics down, and then we're all good. We can expand and we can figure out what we want to do from there.
Yeah, I always wanted to be an ISD reporter. Like that was my full intention starting out writing articles that got me here. Was I wanted to be an ISD reporter. Is that what it is? Or ISD, yeah. Interstellar Correspondence, ISD.
Yeah, so, I'm a former ISD member myself. I mean, I started out in CRC, which was the old forum moderation team. I moved to Star, then I went to CCL when the forum moderation team changed names. Then I actually was a member of Mercury for 2.5 years, which is now the New Eden Correspondence. And I was a member of the Interstellar Correspondence as well. And then I canned all that when I came to CCP. So yeah, I've got a pretty long history with the guys here in Iceland.
I didn't know you were part of those. That's cool. And you were also writing. I saw some articles that you wrote for Eon Magazine, which is I love that magazine.
Yeah, I've got a stack of all 30 issues on my desk at work.
That's awesome.
Just just a couple questions here. I want to flip back to Manifest real quick. Since he had been offered relocation, does that mean and couldn't take it? Does that mean the position itself is going away because he didn't take the relocation, or will that position be replaced?
No, basically, two positions have now merged. So we have a guy who's on the communication team, super cool guy who's based in our London office called CCP Grendel. Some of you guys might have met him at Vegas. And he was the senior communications lead for VR. And he is now transitioning over just to be our senior communications lead. So he'll deal with Eve, Project Nova, all the other stuff that we've got coming up as well. And like he's got super deep roots in the games industry. He's super smart guy. He's going to have to learn a little bit about EVE Online, obviously, because you guys have got a long and very checkered history of many, many crazy things. So I'm gonna give him a crash course in all things EVE. But he's already super interested. He's already started learning, and since he came to CCP a year ago, he's dived into looking at how we do things. He's learned a lot about EVE in our community already. And I think he's kind of relishing the opportunity to dive in and have some fun. So yeah, you guys will probably hear a lot more from him over the course of the next year or so, and at FanFest as well, in fact. So yeah, it's not the positions are being eliminated, just merged simply, so that we're with no longer being such a big need for a lot of PR and communications on the front of VR. It means that we can just consolidate positions, so it should be good.
And then the other question actually came out of the audience out there, basically about localization. You've had some people like Shadowcat and Phantom, who I believe were both involved with the German side to some extent. Obviously, Lilu, with a Russian language background, I think was instrumental there. What is the commitment to localization like in those places that we do have localization, France, Russia, Germany, and how has that been impacted by this?
So unfortunately, we've had to say goodbye to Phantom and Shadowcat, and obviously Lilu as well, who were working. Phantom and Lilu were working actually primarily on English-speaking community management, but Lilu did a hell of a lot for our Russian community, and Phantom did a hell of a lot for our German community as well. We still have people who speak various languages in the house. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of assistance in that respect. And the vast majority, if we want to get specific about like client translations and devblog translations, that kind of stuff, localization actually now lives under a team known as Marketing Services within CCP, which is basically a services team that does all our cinematics, our localization, and all kinds of other stuff. The vast majority of our translations, our client translations, for instance, marketing materials, banner advertisements, that kind of stuff, is all done through external vendors. So we have like a knowledge base, a style guide, and a term base for EVE, because it has some pretty specific terminology, and it's translated into all different languages, and that all the different languages we support, that is. And then the way that it works is they refer to that whenever they're translating. So yeah, most of our actual translation work is done by external vendors, so I don't think that'll be affected too much. It's just the project management side of that obviously we're going to have to jig around a little bit, but we're in good shape in that respect.
Also going to miss the This Week in EVE. They really loved that from CCP Phantom.
Yeah, and of course, that's one of the things that we might miss a couple of weeks, I would imagine, because we're still figuring out exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it. But it's something that obviously I very much would like to continue doing. Yeah.
Well, that's if I could do like an hour show just on This Week in EVE, I would have done that.
Hey. Noisy's got a question.
Yeah, Noisy.
Yeah, about the whole languages in the community. Since you've got like so you're down to basically 2 people in the community team, trying to keep track of like what everybody's saying around the world on places like Reddit and everything, how are you going to be able to keep track of like what the Germans are saying on their forums and the Russians are saying on their forums, and if you don't have the people that speak those languages on your team, aren't you gonna like lose something there with the interaction?
So we also have other members of staff in other teams who are forward facing, who also speak various other languages, and they're actively watching. For instance, if you take the Russian community, we have members of our customer support team who they actively are engaged with our Russian community because they're answering Russian support tickets. And they'll be watching forums like EVAU, for instance. They'll be watching the official Russian forums. We have Russian volunteers as well. We have German volunteers. We have French volunteers. We have, members of the CS team, our GMs who are actively involved in all languages. So I don't really think we've got a huge amount of an issue there. There's obviously some things that we're going to struggle to support a little bit. For instance, like CCP Lilu was heading over to St. Petersburg and Moscow for Russian-speaking player gatherings. So we're going to have to consider, obviously, how we support things like that going forward. But in terms of actual base language support for EVE, I think we're still in a pretty solid position.
And I also have a question about going back to when you mentioned Project Nova. I'm anticipating that there's going to be a need to hire more people onto the community staff once Project Nova actually is up and running, goes into beta and released to the public, or is that going to be a function done by the studio that you have actually programming the game?
At this stage, still kind of TBC. We're super early in the planning stages for community for Project Nova, so honestly, don't really have an answer for that right now. It might end up with us bringing someone in. It might end up with us dealing with it ourselves. We could end up with all manner of different situations. So I think it's a little bit too early to kind of speculate on what we'll do in that respect.
Yeah. Do you have enough people manning the lore section of the lore portal?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've got quite a few people at CCPU dealing with this, so I think we're good in that respect. I spend many a long night writing terrible stuff. So yeah, I think we're good in that respect, definitely.
I'm sure you have no shortage of volunteers for that section.
Absolutely, and I mean, like, fiction and backstory is actually something. Although I've contributed super heavily to it in the past, and like written books, stuff like that. It's actually something that technically it's a project that lies under EVE development. And that's where the responsibility lies, and that's where it's led from. So yeah, I mean, no problems in that respect.
So you're the reason EVE is so dark.
I'm one of many. I'm one of many people who are the reasons of why EVE is such a horrible place.
Now, as far as my understanding is that about 4 or 5 GMs were part of this as well. How is the GM team situated at this point, and do they have the capacity for all the things that the GMs are responsible for?
Yeah, I mean, the player experience team, as they're now known, rather than customer support, they're doing good. Obviously, they've lost a couple of members of staff, and some super cool guys and girls as well. But there's actually more collective EVE knowledge in our customer support team, I think, in terms of players, than there is anywhere else in the company. Like, some of these guys are like the Encyclopedia of New Eden in their heads. It's creepy. Like, it's
like Seamus here.
Yeah, it makes my brain hurt, some of the amount of stuff that some of these guys know. So yeah, I mean, I think our player experience team that includes our GMs, they're in relatively good shape. Yeah.
Lelouch is still the head of that group.
Lelouch is one of our leads. Yeah, he's one of our lead GMs. Yeah, yep. But the actual our director of customer support, he's actually been with CCP for Christ. Like, I think he's like actually fossilized in his office now. But he's he used to be a GM ender. He's now a CCP ender, and he's an old school EVE player. So yeah, I think our player experience team, they're in a really, really good state, despite obviously a few cuts that have been made.
Well, does anybody need a stretch? We've just been barraging you with questions. Everybody good? All right, and we'll continue. How about the audience? You guys need a break? Do you need a bio break?
I think they can go bio break whenever they want to.
Yeah. All right.
Actually, we just had a good question from the Twitch chat. What's going on with the scope videos?
We've had a little bit of a quiet time around scope videos recently because we've just been like absolutely rammed in the run up to Vegas, just super busy with doing stuff. But the guy who generally deals with I do quite a bit of scripting for scope videos, but the guy who deals with all like the video, the post process, and all the effects, the getting the voiceovers and stuff like that is CCP Loki, and he's actually working on a scope at present, but it's a bit of a monster. And he's been working on it for let's just say some time now. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a super cool one coming at some point. So the scope is definitely still a thing.
Oh, good. I think a lot of people miss those. That's one of the things I've been hearing a lot about. So I asked on Reddit, because that's kind of where you can get a lot of feedback that I, don't have access to normally. Oh, by the way, there's an article up on INN that I just wrote about this change in direction, what it could mean and stuff like that. And I'm actually quite upbeat about the change, because I feel like stripping off a lot of the competitors to EVE means that the company's more focused on the game that we're all playing. So as far as an EVE player and being kind of selfish in that way, that can only be good for, the amount of effort that goes into EVE. Not to say that you guys can't do multiple things at once, but at least the company's that way, and we don't feel like we're second-class citizens when we should be the flagship or something like that.
I mean, more focused from who? Because the VR squad was not focused on EVE before, and guess what? They're not focused on EVE now. So I mean, more focused from who? I mean, is Hilmar going to be more focused on EVE Online? Are there other people that are going to be more focused on EVE Online, now because of this? I mean, because we were always led to believe that those other projects didn't impact what was going on with EVE Online.
I think that's true, and I think the reason I was optimistic was not the fact there'll be more focus on EVE Online, but more like how they're going to approach the community and stuff like that. You can read that article on INN, and you're right about that. I think that this company can do more things than one at a time and stuff, but the sentiment and the messaging that people get, at least in our community, is like, hey, we're funding these other projects. We're not, like
that's kind of that's very much been a misconception, like since VR kicked off at CCP. It's been like a misconception, like, oh, why are you spending our subscriptions on working on VR? And that wasn't the case. VR was an entirely separate project, budgeted entirely separately, and it was something that CCP went into VR knowing fine well that it could be something that wouldn't shape up. It's a super young and it's a super early market to get into, and yeah, we didn't want to put EVE itself at risk, and it's unfortunate the way that it's turned out, definitely. But like you said earlier, and just to touch on what Dirk said as well, does it mean there's more focus on EVE? Yes. What does that mean? That means that, yes, there are some people who were previously working on VR who are now going to be focused on EVE, who are now going to be focused on Project Nova. So, yes, in short, yes, more people will be focused on EVE. It means that, for instance, the people who were working in senior executive management, who were devoting more time like over the course of the last couple of years to VR, getting VR off the ground, making it a thing, are now turning the sights on making sure that they're focused 100% on EVE and Nova and making sure that these are a solid success. So yeah, I mean, it's good for that. As rough as the changes are, and the fact that we've had to see a lot of people go, it does mean that the company is way more focused, and it does mean that that CCP is sort of throwing all of the hats in the ring with EVE and Nova going forward. So yeah, I mean, I won't lie, I've been super sad this week. I think between up until last night, I think I had about 4 hours sleep in 5 days. It was a super friggin' rough week for a lot of us. And I can't even begin to imagine how rough it was for the guys who obviously who were laid off on Monday. But despite all that, like, I'm super optimistic. And maybe I'm an idiot. That's I'm sure a lot of people would say that, and Twitch chat will probably light up after the 30-second delay saying Falcon's a dumbass. But I'm optimistic. I've got a hell of a lot of faith in Eve as a project. It's unique, and it has, quite frankly, the best fucking community in online gaming. Like, I've tried other games, and no other game has gripped me like Eve because of our players. And I think that if we weren't to focus and we weren't to make sure that Eve is the biggest success it possibly can be going forward, I think we'd be doing a great disservice. So, yeah, I mean, I'm here 1,000%, and I want to make sure that things go well.
And that is what is so disconcerting about slashing the community team, is the fact of, we know what this community is like. We know what the level of engagement is like. And we also know the fact that if you are engaged in the community, you are more likely to stay associated with the game, if not actually playing the game, regularly, way more than people who tend to not be engaged with the community. So it just seems odd that they would go down this path of, well, let's cut back in this area.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I was very shocked on Monday when this all went down. I was like, okay, what does this mean going forward? I was trying to wrap my head around things. And to be honest, it's been 5 working days. I still don't have all the answers. It's going to be a learning experience. But one thing that I can say is we've still got a super solid group of people who are wearing the hoodies and who are working on the project. So I'm going to stay optimistic, I'm ever the optimist, even if that makes me a dumbass.
I'm right there with you, actually. I was very sad about this too. I'm a big fan of a lot of the people that got cut, even the people that you don't hear about. But I am optimistic about it. This was the one section that didn't make sense as far as the larger narrative. We're going to focus on PC games. The most important thing to Eve is the community. Let's take the community team and take a lot of people out of it. That went against the overall narrative of cleaning it, like focusing on Eve. But like you said earlier, you can hire groups to take on different projects, and that way you don't have the overhead. Or maybe they start to decide to get community feedback in a different way. Which, if you look at the video that's out with Maria Saenz, who, I don't know if you can talk about her, but she is the head of customer relations for CCP. She was hired out of EA a couple of years ago. Mostly it looked like to work VR, but obviously she's going to be affecting the whole company's line of products. And her way of getting feedback from people, at least the way it was expressed in the talk that she gave, was not to trounce around Reddit or forums or try to build community that way. It was really to kind of get information from all the players. So I imagine that's like survey or some whatever nerve network you can use to get through to the players. So maybe community is changing in that way. It's not going to be, that's why I asked that question. Is it going to be as close as it was before and stuff? But I think you can do both things. So who knows?
I think it's going to be closer, if anything, I mean, myself and God have, we've always been on the ground with you guys. We always will be. That's the way that it is. And yeah, I mean, Jesus, it fucking sucks that we've lost good people from the team, but in the same respect, we're still in a good place. We've still got knowledgeable people, and yeah, we just brace and go forward, and I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, and here you are, like just a few days later, right? Here's Falcon on the show, and he, probably do other things too, but he's right here with us. So
yeah, so there's one super dick question that just came up in Twitch chat that I really, really want to answer, and it's from Chavan Park, and he says, Falcon, will you still be optimistic when you get laid off? If I ever get laid off from CCP, you know what I'll do? I'll ping internal affairs and I'll be like, hey guys, unban all my old accounts, and I'll go back to fucking pirating in LowSec. I will get straight back into the game 100%. And I'll be doing shit like what Matterall and what Dirk and what Apothny are doing. And I'll be getting involved with the community game. Because guess what? I started playing Eve when I was 18 years old. I turned 33 this year. It's in my blood. So, yeah, smart ass comment on Twitch. But, it's raised a valid question. And yeah,
Real
that's
answer.
just the way things are.
So
I'll
you'll bring Vito?
100%.
You'll bring Vito back?
absolutely would do. Yeah.
That would be awesome. That would be the one silver lining.
I was actually going to take that question out there and frame it in a different way, because it's like, look, we would all like, especially the people that are kind of like doing shows like this, and you know what? I think a lot of the people out there in the Twitch audience, the people who are engaged, we want to be optimistic. Look, I expect you to be optimistic because you are part of the community team and you're still there. You not being optimistic means we probably have Guard here next week asking where Falcon is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've on Monday I expressed my concerns, and I expressed my annoyance internally, at least, and I was like, what the fuck? And you sit down though and you look at the situation after the initial, I think everyone's initial reaction is to say, oh, what the fuck, and to get stressed and to get angry and to ask why, and to be pissed off and to sort of close the blinds and put yourself in a dark room and be angry about it, but then you've got to think, okay, we've still got a fucking amazing community here. We've still got a fantastic game that has been around for 15 years and has broke new ground every single year in online gaming with the crazy shit that you guys do. So, there's a bad side of things, yeah, but we've got a super solid foundation that we can still build on, and we can push forward, and we can go forward, and we can do good things.
I think the game is in kind of the best shape it's been in a long time, at least from a player standpoint, because there's lots to do on different levels. There's a lot happening on different levels. The conflicts seem smaller. It's less like everybody's in the same place, although the South looks pretty crowded right now. There's a lot of good fights going on that are smaller fights than the usual giant tie-dye messes. So I think right now I'm really positive on EVE. This is certainly a setback personally, but I also like the idea of focusing on PC games because that's the kinds of games that I play. So, for a long time, it's been a search for new types of players, right? Dust was a new type of player, as a console player and first-person shooter.
I mean, honestly, let's be super blunt about it. PC games is what we're good at. You know what I mean? Like, EVE was this. I remember when I started playing EVE in 2003, on 2002 rather, when I signed up for the beta, and I started playing EVE, and I was like, it's a PC 3D MMO, which was like pretty much unheard of, except for a couple of other small titles. I mean, it's older than Warcraft, and Warcraft is a benchmark for MMOs, and it was like, it's made by 30 crazy friggin' Icelanders on a rock in the middle of nowhere, like. It's going to last 6 months, and then I'll move on and I'll play something else. And that's what I thought when I started playing EVE. Then 2 years in, I was like, hey, this has taken on a life of its own. Maybe I'll start a corp. My corp will last 6 months because I'm shit at leadership, and then I'll just, and it'll dissolve and I'll go and do something else. 7 years later, I'm like, wow, crap. I built a corp and this is kind of working and we have a reputation and stuff. And then, here I am. 2012 rolls around, 9 years after EVE released, and suddenly I'm joining the company. Suddenly I'm moving to Iceland. Suddenly I've got this second family. So yeah, I think, community, as much as we get flack for it at times, something I've heard from a lot of people I've spoken to in the games industry is community is something that CCP is pretty fucking good at. And it's something that we want to continue to try and be as good as possible at. And yeah, we deal with sometimes an incredibly volatile community, but it's a volatile community because you guys give a shit, because you guys are invested, and there's like 10, 12, 13, 15 years of investment from some of our longest term players. And we respect that. We love that. And we want that to continue. So yeah, you just got to throw your hat in the ring and push forward.
Man, I could just listen to you this whole show. the couple of times that you've expressed yourself, it's been like I'm right there with you on the
times that I've gone on a rant.
Your rants. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you on your rants. But yeah, that's exactly how I did it as well, and I'm sure these other guys too. You think you're going to just kind of be a pedestrian in it, but then it gets into your veins. There's CCP Avalon inside of the Twitch chat. Hello, Avalon.
Avalon remains.
So it's good. You guys are good at PC games. You guys buck the trends. Other games, like, they spike and crash. If you look at all the other MMOs besides World of Warcraft and maybe a couple others, but most of them, they die after all the hype's out because games never live up to that realistic virtual world that people are looking for. EVE is an exception to that. EVE has always been climbing. Well, and then it stabilized for a while, and now it's a little bit stable too. But I'm talking about, at least when I saw it, 2006 through 2011, everybody else is crashing, and you guys are like, getting stronger and stronger. And now I think you have such a following that people talk about this all the time. Oh, EVE is dying. It can never die because there is definitely a stable core that will always keep it alive.
I mean, it's insane to think, how a bunch of crazy fucking Vikings on a little frozen rock had this ridiculous idea, like in 2000, like 17 years ago, and all of a sudden it's blossomed into this like crazy thing that it is. I mean, EVE is by no means a big game in terms of the size and the number of people that play it. I mean, there's other games out there that are absolute behemoths in terms of the number of people, but the people that we do have, like the solid core community of a few 100,000 players, is like has so much more strength than anything that I've ever seen before. And yeah, I mean, that's why I'm here. That's why I joined the company in 2012, because I fucking love our players. I was one of them for 15 years. I've been one of them since 2002, I think the only thing that I feel guilty about is I don't have a fucking EVE tattoo yet.
Well, and
I don't know. Be careful about that, because those are permanent.
And they love you guys, and that's why we're here. That's why people are listening to this show. That's why thousands of people listen to this podcast. So it's a mutual relationship. And that's why this hurts so much, because we are going to miss a lot of the people. But
there is the people side of it, okay? And obviously the forward facing people, okay, the ones that we engage with, whether it be at a fan fest or a Vegas or through back channels or front channels, Twitter, whatever it is, right? Those are the ones that you sit there and go, oh damn, Logi bro, cool bro, and Lilu at these things, and you get to develop a personal sort of personal relationship with these people, so you feel bad about that. Now there's also other people that were laid off that we don't know about, but again, it comes back to this whole thing of the community and why it ends up being where that community engagement aspect ends up getting cut out. Seems to hurt more because we all sit there and say, wait a second, we know that this is important to the ongoing health of EVE. Why would you tamper with that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's always going to be the question. I mean, I still personally, I still don't have all the answers as to why the people who were let go will let go. I put my faith in the fact that there was a reasonable business decision behind it, and we go from there. And the one thing that you can't do when you work on EVE, or when you play EVE as well, is you can't rest on your laurels. You can't sit back and throw your hands up and say, fuck it. You know what I mean? You've just got to keep moving. You've got to keep pushing. And you've got to keep making sure that you do what you got to do. And I mean, I took out quite a bit of time over the course of this week just to talk to the guys who've been let go, to make sure that everything was all right, to see how I could support people, to the point where actually we all went out for dinner a couple of nights ago and got hammered. And it was just like, it's because it's always going to be a family. It's always going to be a group of people who came to CCP for like-minded reasons. And yeah, I mean, like you said, it hurts, it's painful, but time heals. I think we'll be in a good position going forward.
Yeah, and growth is painful in life. Not to get too deep, but okay. Well, really, thanks for the candor and answering all the questions. I don't think you dodged anything at all. There's just some things you're limited of saying, and we didn't actually ask you a bunch of questions that you couldn't answer, which is great. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone else has got any more questions, I'm more than willing. It's just how things are.
Excellent. And after the show, after every show, we go to the public channel here at the TIS Talking in Stations Discord, where the guests and fans can actually talk. I shouldn't say fans, listeners. But yeah, so we're going to move on to player news. Unless, is there anything else that we wanted to talk about with in regards to the change in direction from VR? If not, I wanted to say player news. War in the East, we have MC and NC have deployed to the Curse area. So it looks like a lot of people are in there fighting it out. And the FC Killer B has moved to NC from PL, and he is now part of the Shiva Corporation. So I think he's actually in Eve Amsterdam.
Yep.
Yeah, he is. I'm intensely jealous. I was I was in the public channel a little while ago, and I was like,
Right. We said if you have time, we'll get you in here to talk, and you can get us up to date on what's being announced there. Actually, CCP Guard announced something there, didn't he? Something to do with PI.
yeah, there's a few little tidbits that have gone out. He showed off some new art stuff that's coming up, some new direction stuff that's coming up as well. I know that I can't remember. Oh God, he's going to kill me when he gets back, but I can't remember his dev name. But one of our QA guys went over, and he's given a talk on kind of the QA side of moon mining and what's coming up, and how the QA process works and how preparation from Lifeblood happens. So yeah, there's some interesting content that's gone into to Amsterdam this year from us.
Speaking of planetary interaction, I haven't touched it in 2 or 3 years. Is it still very much a click fest? So setting up new nodes is double click, that creates a node, click on this, double click, you're going to have created a route, double click,
Yes.
that sets a new product.
I don't know because I'm allergic to industry, so I just shoot things.
He only shoots factories. He doesn't build them.
Or run them.
Yeah, well...
But yeah, PI is basically unchanged since a few years ago.
Yeah, it's a click fest. I was doing it a couple months ago.
So the Tartaras, which are the giant refineries, there are still no kill mails for those. So they're either successfully being put up in well-protected areas, or many are not being put up because they take longer to build and that sort of thing. So we'll look for those. But a lot of the smaller ones, the Arcanon, is it Arcanon? Those guys have been getting killed like crazy. I think there's already over 100 of them that have been killed. So refineries deployed and getting destroyed. Also, there was an announcement, and this is game news, from CCP Peligro, which is part of the security team, that he says he's been watching, and there will be action soon from Team Security regarding botting, which is not legal in EVE in any form. So watch out. And it's funny because...
things about that. I saw it was a Reddit post, which I'm desperately trying to re-find, is that somebody has made a program that uses the API to find systems in nullsec that are likely to be bots. It does not prove bots, and it gives false positives, but it looks at what typical bot behavior is and says, if you fancy hunting in these systems, here are some bots or players that act how we see bots act, and you can go shoot them, which is exactly what I plan to do. I cannot wait to go bot hunting when I find that post again.
So they
I shall also probably load up and go and have some fun.
You will?
Oh yeah.
So you're crowdsourcing punishment, huh?
This is the beauty of EVE. This is not us. This is Emergent. This is you guys hey, I've got API endpoints, and I'm just gonna make a thing that allows me to nuke borders. Yeah, it's great. This is why we love you guys.
Yeah. All right, cool. And last thing is out of game events. Amsterdam is happening right now, and I hope everybody that is usually around Talking in Stations is having a great time over there. It's a good time for that.
Do we know how many people Amsterdam? How big is Amsterdam this year in terms of number of players?
Honestly, I haven't actually had a chance to chat with Dedraval about the size of it, but it averages somewhere between 300 and 400. It's actually the biggest non-CCP event globally, Like, it's the biggest player organized event in the world.
Wow. Is CCP going to take it over anytime soon?
Well, it looks like from the logo, the Upwell Consortium was already bought shares. So, we'll have to see. But I mean, it's exactly the same as what happened with Vegas. I remember when Vegas was a thing that was organized by a couple of guys, and we got invited out there when they started selling tickets for it, and they flew a few devs out, and then all of a sudden it's just become this absolute monster of an event. And it's great to see. I don't know whether we'd ever just be like, by the way, we would like Amsterdam now, but yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic event, and I know that Deidre Val, like, he pours his heart and soul into it, making it as big and as good as he possibly can. And he's constantly bugging us about like more content, more stuff, more support. So yeah, well, it's one of the events that we really want to be a tentpole event going forward, because it's fantastic.
Yeah, send more swag. Now he's out of Eve University, right? Or was former Eve University.
Correct. Deirdre Val used to be director of education for Eve University. I believe he was the director when I was inducted into the education department, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's now just the director of getting drunk and getting lit at Amsterdam.
Well, he excels at what he does. So that's everything we have today. Does anybody have any other questions, or we can have a quick discussion if anybody wants to about anything that we've talked about today, since we have Falcon here?
I think one thing I would say, and this is partially to Falcon, partially to the community in general, is that a lot of the time when EVE players are mad, players get mad at the devs they can see, and those aren't necessarily the devs, if anyone, that they should be mad at. There's a lot of #fire any number of members of the company, and this is the most stupid, irritating thing in the world. Like, I generally am known for not being a very ragey player, but when #fire whoever comes out, like, that legitimately upsets me, especially when second time I was in Iceland for the Alliance tournament, there was a big load of that, and I got so pissed off. Like, guys, we're not happy the community team's gone, but shouting at one, like, frontline dev who does fucking, I don't know, is designing whatever, that doesn't help them. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help anyone to shout at someone like Falcon doesn't decide to lay off half his team. There's no use yelling at him. So just, like,
well, we don't know that. Maybe he did. Maybe he picked them.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Well, you know what I mean, right? So like rage and upset sometimes is useful in public outcry, but try not to pick on specific people who may not have necessarily had anything to do with it, because they're the people, especially in times like this, that are hurting the most, and they do not deserve any vitriol when their friends are losing their jobs and having to potentially leave where they live and have a huge life change with not that much notice for all the help they do get from CCP.
Point taken. Although I did hear that Falcon executed his own veto members when they were dishonorable pirates, which is some of my favorite kind of stuff.
Certainly did. Hey, man,
Falcon, Deop asked a question out there, which we kind of missed before, about the fan site program. That was basically administered, I think, by Logibro. Who's now going to be the point of contact for fan sites?
So it's actually rotated between a few members of staff over the years. I've dealt with it. Phantom has dealt with it. Logibro's dealt with it, and a few other people over the years. And at this stage, not sure who's going to be the main point of contact for it. But we'll figure it out over the course of the next couple of weeks, and we'll be sure to let everyone know who's part of the fansite program.
Well, last thing, it can't be lost on people that you were a great player before you were a great CCP member. But
I was a pain in the ass. That's what I was.
Well, I only read this stuff. I didn't get killed by you. But tell us about pirating these days. How has it changed from low sec? Because you were a low sec guy back in the day.
It depresses me these days because everyone, like, the vast majority of people are bitches who like to hot drop, unfortunately. So, yeah, I mean, the days of being able to, like, roam around in a Blasterthron alone in nullsec and actually, have some fun with it, sadly behind us, just given how the meta has changed. I remember I kind of I sort of gave up. I'm totally gonna diss a particular alliance here, but I'm just gonna fucking do it anyway because it's
Go
one of
ahead.
those days. But I remember I was in a really really expansive rattlesnake. It was like this was back in 2011 or something. It was not too long before I joined CCP, and I was sat in a low sec system called Gebulati, where we were based out of, and I was in a 380 billion ISK rattlesnake. And this was before supers could and caps could jump through gates. And MC decided to hot drop me with like something like 7 or 8 supers while I was sat on top of a gate. I aggressed against an Abaddon that they sent through, brick tanked Abaddon. That started shooting me. Then he lit a Sino, and like more than half a dozen supers came through, and I just de-aggressed and tanked for like a minute and then jumped through the gate and was like, Jesus Christ, I given on life basically. So yeah, I mean, pirating has changed drastically. It's still viable in small gangs. I don't think it's dead, but you know, just how low sec has changed since I was really, really heavily involved in piracy means that the stupid shit that I used to do when I was an Eve player just really isn't usually viable in terms of doctrines these days.
Did you say NC just to be clear, or was it MC?
This was no MC, definitely. Celine and his dirty bunch of
mercenary coalition. All right, good. Yeah, well, that's so it's a whole different ball game now, isn't it, in LowSec?
It is, yeah. And these days, I actually find myself in FW more than anything. I find myself typically in Minmatar and Galente factional warfare, killing the squids and the dirty slavers. So yeah, it's fun, and I do get to sort of have my way of being a little bit of a pirate dick now and again, and randomly nuking someone for fun or ransoming someone here and there. I think I've lost count of how many Kaldari and Amar militia members I've ransomed and then actually just let them go, just for the fun of it. You know, yeah, you really can't take the pirate out of me, I guess.
Oh, I guess not. I love those stories because one of the cool things about Eve was that you would get ransomed, and it just now you get hot dropped and killed, and it's just like, what? But ransom is a whole different dynamic of there's honor involved, and there's finance, and you eject your cargo, I want it kind of stuff. That stuff is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super good fun. And it's still alive in a way. Then you can still do it. It just takes a little bit more investment now than it used to.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing here as we kind of close out the show, because it's just something that came out, is the Clone States devblog got issued the other day. It might be something I'm going to link it in chat for people out there to check out. But if you do have alpha clones and whatnot, there are changes coming to the alpha clones. How you're going to be able to train and that sort of thing. And if you're not up to date on that, you might want to check it out.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm super stoked about the new skill set. I think it's going to be pretty cool. It opens up a lot of doors for people to kind of to experience a little bit more of Eve without having to commit to a sub. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it. It also means that I can actually play with my alpha more, because like he's at the cap right now. So I can mess around a little bit more once December comes and start training him and developing him a little bit.
Yeah. All right, some quick thank yous, and that is, can you read those from Seamus? Maybe can you help me out?
Sure. So Laughing Man D8D subscribed for 2 months in a row. King Zappa subscribed for 5 months in a row. Boogeyman 2132 subscribed for 5 months in a row, and Looney FKR tipped $4.20.
420. What's that mean?
Not a clue. Hitler's birthday.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
so
he's
high, it's over our heads.
celebrating Amsterdam, man.
Yeah, that's a Amsterdam number. All right, great. Listen, thanks everyone for a great show. Appreciate Falcon coming on without a blink of an eye. Said yes, and guards, said I would if I wasn't in Amsterdam too. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this kind of stuff. Feel very bad for your colleagues and stuff. We're thinking about them all the time, and we're kind of part of that family too, but on the outside of it. So appreciate that. That's all we got today. Is there anything else you guys want to say before we go? Sorry to close out, but it's time.
I'm just like super surprised Dirk's still sober, quite frankly. Every time I ever come on a live stream with him, he's just 15 minutes in, he's hammered, and he just goes like in the Dirk old man mode.
Not here. This is Saturday morning, man. Friday night's a different time.
Yeah. I want to say hi to Deopa. I'm a big fan of Deopa's style when he does his streaming. Nobody does it like he does it. I don't care that he doesn't talk, okay? I love the angles he gets. And he's good with the camera, and the sound is amazing. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Really appreciate you. Dominark from the Nerd Guys, Clueless Nerd Guys, and a lot of people watching the show, over 320, I think that's over 320. Appreciate it. We're out of time. We will be back next week. And Falcon, thanks again for showing up. Really appreciate
Anytime,
it.
guys.
All right. Okay, guys, we'll see you next week. That's all for this week. That's it for Talking in Stations.
Fly safe.